जय हिंद, जय भारत and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. पाकिस्तान में बहुत कुछ गड़बड़ हो रही है. We know, we can see what's happening and I've been updating you guys regularly about the situation in Balochistan and of course what's happening with the Pashtun movement. एक जिरगा है जो होने जा रहा है, वो होता है नहीं होता. This is something that we don't know. There are threats flying both the sides. Pashtun Tahaffuz movement has been called a terrorist organization, which is a big, huge change with regards to the positioning of Pakistan. So जरा बात करते हैं with someone who knows the area, who knows the people much better than all of us put together, if I may. Thank you, sir. Tilak, sir, thank you so much for coming in. And it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you on the platform.
Thank you, Aadi. It's great to be on your show once again. Always enjoy talking to you because you're so well informed yourself. So it's good fun.
Thank you, sir. I mean, I wanted to tell you that we need to do this more often because this is the time where जब बोलते हैं ना बलोच एंड पश्तून दोनों एक्टिव हो रहे हैं अभी, तो आपकी एक्सपर्टीज इज गोना बी critical for us to understand what to decipher the shaft from the reality.
Thank you.
Opening, sir, the incident that recently took place with regards to the Chinese in Karachi. Balochis came out within minutes of that attack and said, "ये हमने करा है." And as a matter of fact, Maharang Baloch ने भी बड़ा clearly एक statement दिया था, warning the Chinese कि साहब यहाँ से आप हट जाओ तो अच्छा है आपके लिए. Please go from here. And as a consequence, Maharang Baloch has been stopped from going abroad. I mean, I used to wonder why they let her go abroad, but they finally stopped her. How do you see the Baloch uprising, the movement that they started, which they've not ended as of now? Officially, abhi bhi wo jo unki movement hai, it's still on. So, how do you see the whole situation in Balochistan as far as the Chinese are concerned in specific? And then let's move to the Pakistanis and everything, sir.
So, the Baloch have consistently warned the Chinese and they've consistently attacked Chinese personnel. If you recall, the first lady suicide bombing, Sehri Baloch, took place in about 2-3 years ago when she targeted 2 or 3 Chinese engineers. So whenever it's a target of opportunity, whenever they find an opportunity, and this time, again, it's the Majid Brigade. So they have told the Chinese very categorically that if you continue to do what you're doing, that basically taking our resources from here, and not giving us jobs and our people are suffering, we're not going to let you do what you're doing. And Pakistanis are also aware of it. And every time this happens, the surprising thing is that the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif rushes to the Chinese embassy, expresses sorrow, and says, "I will personally take charge of the investigation." The Chinese also must be telling them, "Yeah, what are you guys doing? Don't you have the intelligence? Don't you have the wherewithal to protect?" Now, when it happened in the dam, Dasu Dam, when the bus was blown up, the SOP was that the Chinese will travel only in bomb-proof vehicles. That time, Pakistan didn't have the money to bomb-proof the vehicle, so there was a thing that who will pay for it. Here again, the vehicle was not bomb-proof. So, the Pakistanis are sort of slipping up every time there is an attack, and then they say, "Oh, so sorry, so sorry, so sorry." Won't happen again. But the fact of the matter is that the BLA, especially its Majid Brigade, are getting bolder, are getting stronger, and are now able to target whoever they want to all over. That attack, multiple attacks in August, they targeted 11 districts, right from the north, from Musa Khel down to the Makran Post. I mean, that kind of coordination, that kind of planning, dispersal of resources, and use of manpower is like a well-planned military operation. That is something. So it just shows they're really growing in strength. And I think the Chinese should be extremely worried because they are now, it's open season on the Chinese.
The problem that I see is that there is an understanding. They know that, boss, this is the situation. Chinese are under threat and stuff like that. But the Chinese somehow seem very adamant on coming back to that area. And
also there could be a deeper Chinese game in this.
Mm-hmm.
You see, every time this happens, the Chinese ratchet up pressure. that you let us bring our own
Troops.
security forces to guard our people.
Hmm.
Now, Pakistan is able to resist. Now, nahi, nahi, we've got two divisions, we are doing this, we're doing that. फिर तीन हो जाते हैं, फिर वो बोलते हैं, फिर वो हो जाते हैं. But after a time, if this continues, so I don't think the Chinese are too much concerned about the loss of their personnel, except for a prestige issue. But they are leveraging this, or they will leverage such attacks to tell the Pakistanis that you let us deploy our own security forces. And I think
Hmm.
Pakistan would find very difficult to say no because there is ground evidence. I mean, if you have three people being killed on a regular basis, their buses, their vehicles being targeted on a regular basis, what is Pakistan going to say? What is their excuse?
That's the whole thing, sir. But fair enough. You're wanting to up apne, you're wanting to get your security forces in. We know for a fact there are about 30 to 40,000 Chinese soldiers, PLA, ex-PLA, security type people which are there in Pakistan, guarding certain assets of the Chinese. We also know Chinese these aircraft and all that the Chinese have given them. Those are managed, maintained, literally scheduled and everything by the Chinese. They're sitting on their airfields. We know that for a fact. So that presence is already there. Why are the Chinese so adamant in getting into civilian infrastructure?
You
Because
know,
they
I'm
know
not
that.
so sorry. I'm not so sure about the Chinese security presence.
Mhm,
Engineers is one thing, maintenance of aircraft or whatever. That is
mhm.
okay. Even when the F-16s were supplied, the Americans have their people to service the aircraft. What the Chinese want is that today there's a security cordon. When a bus carrying Chinese is moving, आगे भी एक जीप होती है, पाक soldiers पीछे भी होती है,
Ji.
and the Pak soldiers also sitting inside the bus. The Chinese want that kind of a presence. That we will do the forward, rear manning transport. So they will be visible. And you know what they will probably do? Something like this happens, they will fire randomly into the crowd. Can you
Okay.
imagine the danger, the implications of that? I don't think so. Pakistan will be comfortable at all
Mhm.
to allow this to happen. The Chinese will want it. They will ratchet up pressure every time.
Now, when you look at a situation like this, what is the Chinese long-term plan, sir? What are they trying to get out of it? Because at the end of it, it's not easy. They should know that Pakistan is not an easy country where you can start controlling. Even if Pakistani say, okay, fine, get your forces inside. With the kind of players that are there, kitne sare hai? BLA, BLF, BRF, BRA. I mean, there's so many of these organizations, and this is just Balochistan. I'm not even talking about the factor that the Pashtuns have started helping them now. इनका भी deal
So,
होगी ये आपस में. So, do you think the Chinese have the capability of kind of safeguarding themselves with this whole alphabet swoop?
what the Chinese will be looking for is at a minimum to get Gwadar. Like Hamban Tota, they would want to get Gwadar, take full control of it, construct a 100-kilometer round barbed wire fence around it
Mm-hmm.
as a Chinese enclave with their own policing, their ships, their submarines, everything coming over there. That I think is their minimum objective. They know that they can't protect the power plants, they can't protect other places where the Chinese workers are working.
Okay.
वो उनका strategic objective ही नहीं है.
Mm-hmm.
Their objective is Gwadar. Because Gwadar port and Gwadar airfield has multiple uses, strategic uses,
Hmm.
which is what they want.
What do the Pakistanis look at, sir? Because there was a report in the Intercept magazine that the Chinese would be given the Gwadar port. Right? I don't buy the Intercept that much because it seems like a propaganda division of the CIA, which is pretty much the open source narrative today. But the sheer factor that in 3 days later, the Pakistanis got the IMF tranche. They got $1.1 billion. And then also the Pakistani said, no, 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 we're going to do the deal. And then the BLA comes and hits them. Uh, Are these things connected?
Yeah, you see, the Pakis want to go back to the relationship they had with the Americans all these decades.
Hmm.
They love the fact that the Americans give free lunches. They cut a check $3 billion, and here it is. The Chinese ask for returns, sweetheart deals, interest free payment, and stuff like that. Second, they don't want to be totally in the Chinese camp because all said and done, Chinese equipment, defense equipment, has problems. And culturally also, the Pakistani would rather send his kids to the US. China कोई नहीं भेजेगा. अभी तक तो कोई गया नहीं China. They can't buy property in China.
Yeah.
In the US they can. So they want to keep one leg in the US camp. They're desperate for the US to come back
Hmm.
and have a strategic relationship with them, which they have had 3 times in the past. So they don't want to give up on the Chinese, on the Americans.
Hmm. How do the Americans deal with this nonsense now?
Americans know. The Americans know that the Pakistanis are ready to do anything for them,
Okay.
so long as the price is right. But they also know the amount of anti-Americanism in the Pakistani public is very, very high. The propaganda, religious parties ka propaganda, you know, Israel, all those kind of things. वो भी है. So it is a contradictory kind of a thing that Pakistan itself does not know. Is America a friend? Is it a benefactor? Is it there just to rip off money from? Pakistani तो समझता है कि मैं बहुत smart हूँ. I'm making a fool of the Americans. The Americans can fool the Americans for some time. You can't fool them, all the time. So they
For
are
that,
very keen. They're very keen. The Americans somehow focus their attention back to Pakistan, and that they feel will lessen the US attention on India, which they hate. Which they hate.
I have a kind of a sort of a logic which looks at it. If you look at America's future strategic this thing and you read their writings and stuff, Balochistan is quite the center of their focus, and they've been talking about it pretty openly now. Have the Americans today realized that the Punjabi Mussalman who's there in charge of Pakistan eats too much money and does nothing? So is it easier for the Americans to kind of support the movement in Balochistan, get rid of the Pakistanis from there, clear it out, suck in the Chinese, give them a strategic defeat there, and then take over that region so that they can have their alleged base there, which is close to India, close to Afghanistan, close to Iran, and of course the underbelly of Russia. So strategically, does that make sense to you?
It does make sense, but I don't see that happening in the near future. I think the Americans have got too much on their plate at the moment. And with the election coming up, they have got too many irons in the fire, like Middle East, Ukraine, Taiwan, South China Sea, Indian Ocean. So this is a lower priority. Were the things to go out of control with Iran, then Balochistan gets strategic importance. Because that becomes a land border. You have a direct access into Iran from Pakistan. You can have it from Afghanistan. I don't see the Taliban allowing the US land access to the United States. So Balochistan is the best bet. Pakistan will find it very difficult to allow the US access against Iran because of their own 20-25% Shia population.
That's the whole point. So you separate
Yeah.
them out and you can do what
So in
you
that
need.
case, if things go down with Iran, then Balochistan's strategic significance will go up. But as I said, I think the US is too distracted at the moment to be looking at very closely to Balochistan. They will be keeping an eye on what's happening over here, especially because of its direct access to Iran. But अभी इसको ये pick up नहीं करेंगे.
When you actually look at the two regions together, which are kind of blowing up right now, I mean, all of them are blowing up except for the little point in Islamabad, Lahore, that you can draw a circle around it. Probably nothing more than that. Even the southern Punjab, there are issues which are now coming into the fore. But let's look at these two regions, Balochistan and the Pashtunistan, if I may. Um, we know that there is a silent agreement between these two people that, yeah, fair enough. You guys don't have the population, we guys have the will. Let's kind of work together. And we know that the TTP has been training the BLA chaps. That's now bang in the open. As a matter of fact, last time when there was an attack in Gwadar, and the Pakistanis killed some of these BLA chaps, TTP guys came down into Quetta and southern Quetta, and they actually came into the battle zone.
Hmm.
Uh, and they started attacking the Pakistanis on behalf of the Baloch. And funnily speaking, certain TTP spokespeople are now Baloch. Their surnames are Baloch.
And
So,
also, yeah. And other
how
thing
do you
is
see it?
that the cooperation of media
Hmm.
propaganda efforts are very very visible now.
Yeah.
As soon as something happens in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Baloch handles will immediately start amplifying that,
Yep.
and vice versa. Whatever happens in Balochistan, it will be the KPK handles that will start it. So on the media front, there is definitely they are working in tandem. I think they're using each other tactically. There are some splinter Baloch groups. One name I came across was Aslam Baloch. There was somebody else who are now actually formally associated with the TTP. I don't think so. The BLA or the BLF or the other major groups are. We may have a tactical alliance in terms of getting weapons from the TTP, giving logistics to TTP in Balochistan, in terms of tactics. You see, like suicide bombing has never been a Baloch,
Baloch
uh,
thing. Yeah.
you know, but of late you will find, and then you've had three cases of women Baloch who have blown themselves up.
Yeah.
The last one was this lady called Mahal Baloch. So I think on a tactical level, sharing tactics, sharing resources, that is there. But the fact that itself should be very, very worrying to the Pakistan army. Because, these are the two best fighters in this part of the world.
Hmm.
They don't require training, they have the motivation, and they have dealt with the Pakistan army for a long time. They know how to deal with them, what are their weak spots.
Hmm.
So it's a very dangerous development as far as the Pakistan army is concerned. That these two people, and likewise, when this firing took place on the Pashtun Jirga, I think Mehrang Baloch came out with a statement.
Yep.
When she was prevented from leaving, I think the her Pashtuns also protested, in terms of tweets saying, "Why is this being done?" So gradually you can find, and this is something as I mentioned earlier in your program, the Pakistan army does not know how to deal with the civil society protests. People who are protesting without weapons, if they pick up weapons, it's easy for the Pakistan army to crush them. But on a civil rights movement, Pakistan army finds it very, very difficult. They don't know what to do.
Which is where the question comes to play, that the let's kind of just move a little north, and you see that the PTM, the Tahafuz movement, and the TTP have had a strategic alliance as well. They've started talking to each other, and we see a lot of communication again getting highlighted by both the things. The TTP
Yeah.
stuff is being spoken about by Pashtun handles, and the Pashtun stuff is being spoken about by the TTP handles. Especially right now, that Jirga thing which is happening. Uh, I think it's a 2 day Jirga, right? 2 or 3 day Jirga or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So the TTP has come out hardcore in support of that. And as a matter of fact, as I was telling you offline, they have threatened the Pakistani state that if you do anything, but just forget Punjab. So what's this happening here? Because we know for a fact, and we've learned this from you, that the peaceful Pashtun will not pick up the gun.
except when he's pushed to the wall.
Yes,
My book, Pashtun's A Contested History,
sir.
I was looking at it again recently. The third Pashtun Qawmi Jirga was held in May 2022 in Bannu.
Hmm.
Now, there were two before that. Now, I don't know if one was held in 23 or not, but if not, then this present one will be the fourth.
Yeah.
Now, those Jirgas were attended by all political parties and factions among the Pashtuns. ANP, PMAP, the even representatives of the government, some PTI members also in their individual capacity. It was actually a collection of all Pashtuns, and the Bannu Jirga had a 22 or a 25-point declaration, and which I had
Mhm.
mentioned in my book, could well become the basis of a Pashtun consensus on the way forward. And that was very well received by Pashtuns and non-Pashtuns in Afghanistan, because it talked about holding a Loya Jirga in Afghanistan. It talked about having elections in Afghanistan. It talked about not accepting the barbed wire fencing of the Durand line. So even in Afghanistan, it had wide receptivity. And of course, in Pakistan, it had wide receptivity. So if they are building on that consensus document, this one would have been a very important one because, or will be because tomorrow is the 11th. So they have to take it ahead. That's why the army is worried that if this civil society movement comes up with a declaration, it could be anything, or a 4-point plan or a 5-point plan, how do they tackle it? How do they deal with it? So best thing is to prevent it. इसको होनो ही मत दो. Violence, they've killed 3 of them, injured 10 more, declared it a proscribed organization. And here I think the PTI is playing a rather dirty game.
Okay.
This is the deal I think they've struck with the army when, this fellow Ali bin Gandapur, when he went missing. So some sort of talks would have been held. He used the state resources to disrupt the Jirga. So this firing that took place was not by the army, but by the KPK police. But I also wrote in that book, I said today the PTM is peaceful, they're non-violent. But if the Pakistan army continues to push them to the wall, what is to prevent the PTM actually going to join the Taliban or the TTP? When you have nothing left to, the state doesn't listen to your peaceful protest. The state doesn't want to give you constitutional rights, which are guaranteed to all citizens in Pakistan.
Yeah.
The state is oppressing you. The state is killing your people. Picking up people in forced disappearances. What are you going to do? And for a Pashtun to pick up a gun, it's like breathing. It's very easy. He can do it straight away. The fact that he has not shows the kind of discipline. And this training is a arc back to Ghaffar Khan's Khudai Khidmatgars. During the British rule, this was an article of faith with the Khudai Khidmatgar. And this was the oath that they all took. Force of no violence. And that's why he was so close to Gandhiji.
Yeah.
Gandhi's non-violence,
Hmm.
influenced the Khudai Khidmatgar, and that tradition has been carried on with the PTM.
Fair enough. So I take that point, but my whole thought process, and I keep wondering about this, is that that's 70 years ago, right?
But the
So,
traditions, those traditions and those values have been carried, conveyed father to son, father to son. Because the ANP, Awami National Party, still is a non-violent, they don't believe, even though they have been also at the receiving end of the Pakistan army, they have stuck to the non-violence of Ghaffar Khan. So it is a tradition which is very much alive among the Pashtuns. Surprisingly, even Nehru was stunned. He said, how can a Pashtun be non-violent? And the British found it very suspicious. They would rather have dealt with the armed Pashtun like the Pakistan army than a non-violent Pashtun. They don't know how to deal with them.
What do you think is the
So,
plan in this Jirga? What do they want to do?
you see, they're going to talk, I'm sure, they're going to talk about self-determination. They're going to talk about their rights. They're going to talk about their resources. Water is a critical resource as far as the Pashtuns are concerned. They're going to be talking about development in FATA areas. You know, that they were promised that after they will merge with KPK, there are certain developmental works that will be done to bring up the ex-FATA to the same level as the settled areas. None of that has taken place. They will talk about education. They will talk about IDPs. They'll talk about demining. Many areas are still mines are there. Little children get their legs blown off when they step accidentally over a mine. So, and I don't know what they will say, or whether they go to the extent of the Durand line and say we don't accept it, and our brethren on the other side. That's what Pakistan is really scared about. Kahin they dare say something like that, makes it very embarrassing.
You know, see the Pakistani state and its writ as per se, right? Uh, they've been trying to, and जो बोलते हैं ना फौज का काम है, ये है, वो है. They've been trying to do that. Recently, when you saw there was a thing in Bannu where the locals came out and said, "Listen, get out." They told the Fauj, "Just go from here."
Lucky
And then
Maru.
Lucky Marwa, Bannu,
Yeah.
they literally went back because they knew there's no way to sustain themselves. So they've
This was the
crossed
police.
back.
This was the police
Police
who
who
went
came
on
out.
strike, to say that you get out and we'll deal with terrorism ourselves. The fact, because allegation was that you were in touch with the terrorists. Or terrorists हमको मार रहे हैं. You've done deals with the terrorists. You brought the terrorists here. So how can we fight for the terrorists so long as you are here? So आप निकलो यहाँ से. I mean, that's such a major accusation against the army that you are in touch with the terrorists and you are the ones who's breeding them.
So that's the whole thing. The writ of the state is not functioning there. I mean, the chief minister of KP, Gandapur, he came out and said that, "Listen, yaar, आप गोली मारोगे, गोली का जवाब गोली से दिया जाएगा." And the funny thing, and I'm going to connect PTI to this, PTI guys were buying tear gas shells, expired tear gas shells, might I add, from the Pakistani Punjabi police for $50
Yeah.
a piece. $50 a piece, and they were selling. They
But
have
can,
videos of that.
yeah. But can you imagine, Adi? Here you have the state, which is supposed to have monopoly of violence, firing tear gas, and there is a crowd, and the crowd is firing tear gas back at the army, at the police. I mean, this is civil war.
Yeah.
They are firing it back, and this fellow Gandapur's, kafila had fire brigades, had
Mhm.
ambulances,
Mhm.
had earth moving equipment. Those JCBs and all to shift the containers. जैसे एक तरफ से चढ़ाई कर रहा था ना इस्लामाबाद पे. He chickened out in the end, and there's the way he acted is very suspicious. That why didn't he actually go to Tea Chowk, and why did he go instead to KP House?
There are conflicting reports on this. The
Yeah.
Pakistanis say he went to KP House, but there are a lot of people who say no, he didn't. He actually was kidnapped.
On the other hand, his story is fantastic. He said from that KP House, he went, escaped, climbed a hill, the Margala hill, came down the other side, picked up a stone, hijacked a vehicle. He had no money to pay for the vehicle. He changed 10 vehicles, then finally arrived in the KP assembly.
It's just
People are not
Pakistanis.
stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people.
Even for
Pakistanis.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, he is trying to act like that Punjabi hit film, Maula Jat. He is trying to be a Pashtun Maula Jat.
I think he saw that
एक,
easy way. He said,
yeah,
"ये करते हैं, चलो ये
ये
story
कर
बनाते
देंगे, वो कर देंगे, and there's a lot of nonsense.
हैं." So when you see that, as I'm going to take that writ of the state forward, you don't have the resources to control that state anymore. You don't have the resources to control Balochistan. नहीं है आपके पास. You just don't have it. How does the Pakistani army now start thinking about it? Because we know for a fact that there is trouble within the army. ISI chief just go extension. One fine day he's just gone. And a namesake guy, Asim, both are now Asims. Chief is Asim and ISI chief is also Asim. So namesake guy has been put up there. There is constitutional crisis sort of a thing which is happening. You don't have the writ. How long will you continue with this charade?
You see, one is the army has dominated Pakistan since Ayub Khan's time because they felt that they were in a better position to run Pakistan than, as they say, the bloody civilians. Are they did it directly through martial law or through this hybrid regime model? Same page, hybrid regime model. And what allowed them to do this was the aura and charisma that they had. That people felt that when all else is lost, the Pakistan army will succor us, will protect us. Now, that aura and charisma has been badly damaged by Imran Khan. The statements that he made, the accusation that he did, the May 9th happenings, that aura has been eroded. So now there are a set of people and parties who feel they don't really have to listen to the Pakistan army. On the other hand, the Pakistan army continues to believe that they call all the shots and they can pressurize anybody and get anything done. So conflict is inherent. So what you're seeing happening in KPK and maybe in other parts of the country too is that people are no longer willing to accept the aura and charisma of the army, that this is the institution that will protect us at the time when the chips are down. So Pakistan's army's strength, their firepower, their manpower continues to be the same. But वो रॉब जो था ना पाकिस्तान आर्मी का, that charisma and that aura, that has taken a hit. And last 2 years, since May 9th, that has not been rebuilt. That will take years to rebuild. And Imran Khan is chipping away at their army all the time.
Imran Khan is one entity whose account goes up and down. Like, I mean, literally, it's
Depends what he's been smoking that day.
Yeah, that's his aura keeps. I mean, literally every second week, it's like, oh, iska to ho gaya khatam. Oh, acha, abhi Imran Khan chhoot jayega. You wonder. I mean, like, yeah, you have this problem. Now you deal with it. They're not ready to deal with him. They're not ready to throw him out. They're not ready to punish him. They're not ready to convict him. They're not ready to hang him. They're not ready to kill him. What's this control that Imran Khan has over these guys? I mean, it's impossible to understand.
No, here again, you see, the army knows that were Imran Khan to be harmed or something serious happens, there will be mayhem in the country. People will come out in the streets. People will come out in the streets even in Punjab. KPK mein to hai. A lot of people from KPK will come into Punjab. What does the Pakistan army do then? If you recall earlier in 1977, during the PNA agitation, when this Pakistan National Alliance was protesting against Bhutto, 3 brigadiers, one after the other, refused to order their troops to fire into a crowd protesting in Lahore. 3 brigadiers were court-martialed. And during an inquiry, they also found that the soldiers in one place had fired about 20 odd bullets. The shells were counted, but injuries were only 4 or 5, which means they were firing in the air. Now, army never fires in the air. The army fires to kill or to maim. They don't fire in the air. But a Punjabi army did not want to shoot into a Punjabi crowd. That's when Zia decided that he has to get rid of Bhutto. Otherwise, the entire integrity and unity of command of the Pakistan army would have broken down. Situation has not changed. Today also, in Lahore or in Faisalabad or in Rawalpindi, it will be very difficult for units from Punjab to, to fire into a Punjabi crowd. You see, they can do direct firing in KPK. People have been killed in KPK. People have been killed in Balochistan. But in Punjab, so the army will not want to go to that extreme yet if they think that they can bottle up Imran Khan by other tactics. But Imran Khan is relentless, you see, and he is also playing some sort of a smart game. One day in the morning, he will say, "Okay, I will talk to the government. अब committee बनाओ." So Mahmood Khan Achakda की committee बना दी. 2 days later, he says, "No, no, I will talk to only the people who have the real power, which is the army." Then something will happen, and he said, "No." So army doesn't know, what is the way forward. What they're trying to do is actually to finish him and the PTI using the Supreme Court and the constitutional amendment. I think this is the last throw of the dice before they get to hardcore action. Now, these recent judgments on Article 63A and on the reserved seats. So, whatever reserved seats had been given, first of all, recognizing the PTI and allowing its members, those about, I think, 41 members who were still independents, were given a 15 days time to choose their party. But then another bench in review, headed by Qazi Isa, said no. That once, in the meantime, the government changed the election law. So, as per the new amendment, once a person has declared his allegiance to a party within 3 days of the election, like all these guys had declared their allegiance to the Sunni Ittihad Council, SIC, they cannot now change their affiliation to the PTI. And since the Sunni Ittihad Council had not contested the elections, they cannot get any reserved seats. So effectively, all the 80 members of the PTI are members of the SIC and they do not have any reserved seats. I think the PTI would have got about 20 reserved seats, which would have prevented the government from getting a 2/3 majority. Now, once these seats come to the government, they will have a 2/3 majority to ram through a constitutional amendment with the Maulana or without the Maulana. And in the constitutional amendment, it's a weird amendment. They're setting up a court above the Supreme Court called the Federal Constitutional Court. It's, I don't know where it happens. So, because Qazi Faiz Isa retires on 25th of March, and the new Chief Justice Manzoor Ali Shah, he is believed to be pro Imran Khan. So, to defang Manzoor Ali Shah, the Federal Constitutional Court will deal with all constitutional issues, all political issues. The original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court also goes to the Federal Sharia Court, Federal Constitutional Court. In effect, making Mansoor Ali Shah absolutely defunct. What will he do? Twiddle his thumbs. There's nothing for him to do. And everything will go to the Qazi Faiz, who will be appointed as the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. Sorry, you're muted.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't hear you.
That guy has 2 years, sir.
Mansoor Ali Shah.
No, Qazi.
No, he retires on 25th October.
Yeah, but he's got 2 years extension. That's the max he can give him. So how
No.
does that really help the situation?
If they push it back by 3 years, see, if he becomes, they increase the age to 68, 3 years.
यार क्या कर रहे हो? ये तो
तो
दिस इज हाईवे
तीन
रॉबरी.
तीन साल यार. Here they're living from day to day.
Oh man, this is really amazing. I call this highway robbery. Nothing else, you know. Like और कुछ नहीं मिला तो पकड़ के
And
कुछ किसी को.
everybody knows this is a fraud.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this is a fraud. Yet it is being perpetuated. And then
You
they
know
claim they're champions of democracy.
when you, oh, thank you, sir, for that. I don't think I'll be able to sleep with that statement of yours, sir. But jokes apart, you've got this SEO happening there now. You know, another 5 days, Jaishankar is supposed to go there. Funnily speaking, the whole narrative around Jaishankar has been very. Normally, they're like, dekhte and all that. This time, they're like, why have you called him? इसको क्यों बुलाया भाई? ये तो अमेरिका को नहीं छोड़ता, ये तो हमारी पैंटे उतारेगा यहाँ पर.
Absolutely.
That one. How do you see the narrative coming across from the KP guys inviting Jaishankar and saying, "Yeah, please come here and address us"? Now, is
Oh,
this?
man.
This is see. I look at it. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a great information warfare. Great. But if you actually dig a little deeper into this is KP basically saying, "Listen, we are away from Pakistan. We are not a part of Pakistan. This is a formal invitation to the Foreign Minister of India to come and address us."
And this, mind you, is said not by the TTP or by the PTM. It is said by the PTI government. You know, one
The
of
chief,
the chap who, yeah,
yeah,
chief whip,
it's
the
from
chap
his
who was
office.
there, he may have retracted it. That's besides the point. The fact that he said it is very significant. You see, what Pakistan is afraid, and I hope the EAM has been listening to what is being said on Pakistan television and talk shows. It will be a big morale booster for him. What the Pakistan government and people are afraid of is what will he say? And you're right, if he bashes America in America, he'll make mincemeat of Pakistan. And they cannot deny him that opportunity because when Bilawal Bhutto had come here, he had free access to the media.
That's the whole point.
So chickens come home to roost.
Yeah.
Now, if EAM wants to be, you know, I don't know what's on his mind.
He
If
said,
he
"I'm going
wants
to be
to
a
be,
good boy."
he's going to be a good boy. But good boy for who?
For whom?
Ah,
Exactly.
he can be a good boy for India.
I've been laughing on this, but then I said, yeah, this is deeper. This is not just a silly, sick invitation. This is bloody that area saying, ki, boss, our foreign policy is going to be different. Now, why do I bring this point up? Is because the Gandapur himself went to Afghanistan stating, I'm going for state level negotiations with the Taliban.
Taliban. Yeah.
This is like, boss.
That the state has already declared independence. Gandapur, even earlier during the budget times, I didn't sort of pursue that, but they had declared their budget first and said federal government has to give us this money.
Yep. Yep.
The Amara, they have to give it to us, which will be part of our budget.
Correct.
It doesn't happen that way in a normal province. But likewise, with Afghanistan, talking to them and the acquisitions and threats that he wore. See, he's also a bit of a loose cannon. The kind of abusive language that he used against Mariam Nawaz. Okay, I'm coming to Punjab, and when Pathans come to Punjab, you know what happens. That kind of. I mean, come on. That's again, I said Maula Jat. He's trying to be a Pathan Maula Jat.
Yeah. Finally, sir, I mean, ye log Kashmir. I don't hear Kashmir at all from them, except for Shahbaz Sharif, who went and banged the table and this and that, and he got it from one of the most junior-most diplomats in India. They didn't even have the right to reply after Jaishankar came out and said what he said. They didn't take the right of reply. They just hid behind their corners and went home. There was nothing. We took our right of reply and we gave it back to them. They didn't. This whole perception. I mean, now they've called who? Zakir Naik. By the way, you should see the kind of feedback coming from the average Pakistani. They're like, yaar, ye kisko leke aaye ho?
Yeah.
Who's this guy? He can't say. What is he talking about?
You see, also,
the direction of this state.
What they didn't realize, he is from the LA Hadith.
Yep.
The bulk of the population in Pakistan is either Barelvi or Deobandi,
Deobandi.
who, who don't see eye to eye
No.
with the Ahli. But this man is coming, and what I can make out, he's only talking about raping women.
Mhm.
Is this
Sick.
is this dawa? Is this preaching? So people are saying, yeah, you know, absolutely, who is this fellow? And that is horrible incident where he wanted PIA to give him 300 kilos of free baggage allowance.
300? What the hell was
Yeah,
he carrying?
piles and piles of suitcases.
I mean,
That
it's
is
it's.
that trip has totally failed.
What do you think is the future of this state? I mean, the government is useless. I don't see any point to it. He's just a tie-wearing token. And there are certain few journalists, I must say this, the old-time journalists who are romanticizing Shahbaz Sharif in certain number of the columns. I don't want to mention the newspaper because people are pretty smart. They'll pick it up. Uh, they're romanticizing. No, he's a very cultured man. He can be dealt with. Oh, we should, communication must be done back channel. We must understand where he's coming from. I still don't understand after 70 years of this stuff. I love the way we are dealing with them right now. Do you think that we should go back to these Aman ki Asha types?
Not at all. Not at all. It's a simple fact. 193 heads of states or governments or foreign ministers spoke at the UN
Yeah.
GA. Not one talked about Kashmir.
Nope.
Even a man like Erdogan, who every year would rake up Kashmir, didn't talk about Kashmir.
Nope.
If that is not a message to Shehbaz Sharif and to Pakistan, then they have to be either deaf and blind. Arya, nobody's interested. Ho gaya, finished. End of story. Supreme Court has given a judgment. Elections have been held peacefully. Not one incident of any violence. Peaceful transfer of power. What are you talking about? That realization, I think, is sinking into the people of Pakistan. So therefore, you find Kashmir has gone off the airwaves.
I
And
don't
one
think. I mean,
interesting thing about Shehbaz, normally when he speaks in Punjab, he bangs the table and he throws the mic away.
yeah.
I'm glad he didn't do it at the UN. And even in the UN, you don't thump your table. It's a
I,
dignified place. You're not making
I
a
think
election
he's one of
speech.
I think he's one of the most uncouth monkeys I've ever seen. People have this romantic figure about him because he wears these classic Italian tailored suits and stuff like that, and those cut collars and those ties and everything like that. You should see the romanticism which has been put into certain op-eds. It's not funny. I get really irritated. Nowadays, I stopped reading those. I said, "Yeah, this is not my cup of tea," because I get irritated when I read that. Finally, sir, question about the Pakistani army. Is Asim Munir the weakest army chief you've seen in your observation time of Pakistan? And what do you think is the future of him and the army itself, which is showcasing openly cracks within itself?
You see, I won't call him the weakest because the institution of the army chief
Hmm.
is such that it catapults a man into strength. You can say about Asim Munir that he is certainly the most reticent army chief. He doesn't come out forcefully. His mannerism of speaking. See, all the previous army chiefs, if you compare it with Bajwa or Rahil Sharif or Kayani, and before that Musharraf, all the very forceful speakers. They had a command presence. They had a personality which should be visible, when they're standing, ki, हाँ, ये सिपा सलार बोल रहा है. With Asim Munir, you don't get that. But
Correct.
in terms of weakness, he's army chief, The power and aura of the army chief, everybody falls in line. Nobody's going to act against him. And in terms of being decisive, well, he's sacked and put to trial two lieutenant generals, serving lieutenant generals. the former DGISI, and things like that. So that shows that he is in control of the army, but he is faced with probably the biggest crisis any army chief has faced, which is Imran Khan. How do you tackle Imran Khan, a protege of the army, and an Imran Khan who's a cult figure, and an Imran Khan who's probably the most popular figure in Pakistan today and for many decades in the past? Nobody has had that kind of popularity and adulation. And also, especially because it's a young population. You know, Pakistani population between the ages of 18 to 35 is what, about 40% of the population? Or
Yeah.
some such figure. I'm not sure right now. It is a young population, it's an aspirational population whose aspirations are not being met. They see cable television, they have access to all these phones, mobile phones, they're knowing what's happening in the world. They have seen no chance of those aspirations being met ever in Pakistan. So
Hmm.
they either try to run away or they see in Imran Khan a hope, a person who will actually transform Pakistan. The older political parties, the legacy parties or heritage political parties, haven't got this yet. PTI is the smartest party in terms of social media.
Hmm.
They reach out to people, the youth, their overseas strength. Again, they reach out to people within Pakistan and overseas. They're communicating. The older parties are not able to match him politically. The army is not able to match him politically. The ISPR has gone for a toss. Earlier, about almost a decade or less than a decade ago, the ISPR was very much on the ball.
Yeah.
It had the best kind of trolls, who would defend and project whatever the viewpoint of the army was. Today, it is a deadbeat organization. DG ISPR, once in a while, he makes out a statement or something like that, but that's deadbeat. They are no match for the PTI in terms of communication. And then you have a cult figure like Imran Khan. So I think Asim Munir is facing that challenge which no previous army chief had faced. And he probably appears weak because of that, not because of his lack of control of the army. If he was a more forceful personality, if he came across more strongly, came out more often, ready to engage, he could have a different impression about himself.
The kind of numbers of soldiers that he's lost is pretty much the highest ever. I mean, he's losing an average of 10 to 12 soldiers a day. It's
That I'm not able to do anything about it.
nothing, not a zilch, not a zilch.
See, you can attack the PTM, you can stop Mehran Baloch from traveling abroad, but these are not your victories. People are seeing the number of fatalities, the number of bodies. हर रोज आप कॉफिन लेके तो नहीं घूम सकते ना.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the army is taken. That's what I said. The aura and the charisma of the army has been severely eroded.
Hmm. I must say, sir, this has been a very interesting podcast. I think we've laid a baseline for the communication going forward. So, as I said, I'm going to disturb you quite a bit because I think Pakistan is going to go up in the fritz. And I know you will not agree with me, but I'm going to say this one thing very clearly. I've said this on my channel before. 2027 is the last date you'll see Pakistan's map the way it is. I don't see
Okay.
it going forward. I put my neck out, sir.
Wow.
Right? I've put my neck out and said this. I'm saying 2027. That's it. 1st January 2027, this thing will not exist. You can keep drawing the map and saying, yeah, Mara hai, but just not going to be there. I know that for a fact. But I'm younger to you. I still want to learn from you because I need to validate my hypothesis as well.
Well, thank
So
you very much, Adi, because you have such a fund of information yourself. You keep in touch on a daily basis. You keep in touch with people, on the ground. That's a
sir,
very big advantage.
thank you, sir. I think learning from the best makes you better. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
actually teaching us and for the time. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Jai Bharat.